village. So these are the people we live and work with, and it's a privilege to be with them. So when you're ready, we can just go ahead and start that DVD.
Pastor, can you leave the door open? It is so hot in here.
My brother's talking in the hallway.
Tell me quiet down.
Let me brush the door open here.
Let's invite the kids in.
It is a new day in God's
Technical issues. We just wanted to simulate the Tanzanian climate there in this room.
Yeah.
We have one Sunday school kid. Can we find any more to invite in? I'll look around.
My name is Nanyoki. In Maasai, this means trouble or hardship, because I was often ill as a child. Come with me. We need to leave early to fetch water. It will take most of the day. We'll talk as we go. Life here revolves around our cattle, just as it has for centuries. Each year, the 5-month dry season must be endured. Our clans have survived in this harsh environment through cooperation. We value relationships far more than we do money, time, or possessions. The cowhides we sleep on, the gourds in which we store our milk, and almost everything we use is biodegradable. When our clan moves on, there will soon be no trace that we were here. Our homes are built by the women. We weave branches around cedar poles, plaster with a mixture of mud and manure, and thatch the roof with grass. Everyone's favorite food is roast goat. My husband, Sinyok, is a respected elder in our community with a reputation for solving problems. By Maasai tradition, my marriage was arranged when I was a young girl. Sanyok paid my father with cattle. I am his second wife. About 10 years ago, we realized we could be both Maasai and Christian. Our clan was baptized as a large group. Our songs, worship, and our understanding of God are Maasai. As shepherds and cattle herders, we relate easily to the people and events of the Bible. Like our livestock, zebra and elephants must drink every 3 days. Wild animals, people, and livestock share the same water sources and grasslands. We do not hunt, and the wild animals are not afraid of us. Some of the antelope and gazelle are so desert adapted, they go several months without drinking water. But for us, water is a constant concern. Over the centuries, the Maasai and the lion have developed a mutual respect. Confrontations are usually avoided unless a lion starts killing cattle. From sunup to sundown, the boys are responsible for herding goats. The young men must find pasture for the cattle. During the dry season, this means taking the cattle to distant grazing areas for months at a time. This week, I will take my 9-month-old child for her measles immunization. When I was a small girl, measles killed many young children. Even today, most Maasai women lose at least one child to malaria, malnutrition, or gastroenteritis. During pregnancy, we minimize our weight gain. This keeps babies small, and we avoid obstructed labor. Babies are normally about 2 kilos or 4 pounds at birth. Although we love our traditions and culture, change is inevitable. With children in school, they can no longer follow the cattle. Farming threatens some of our traditional grazing areas. Some cultural practices like polygamy are being challenged. Many of our young people are finding work in towns and cities. Come with me. We've been invited to a celebration. Our celebrations are full of energy. Wouldn't you agree? Thanks for coming with me. Now we won't have to fetch water until the day after tomorrow.
That video is supposed to be fun, and it'll be much funner if you actually come and join us in Tanzania. We host mission teams about 3 times a year. We get a group of people from here in the U.S., usually a group of about 12, 14 people, young people and adults, to come over and help us repaint one of our medical clinics, or put in sidewalks, or help build a church for the local Christians where we work alongside them, maybe building a wall or pouring a floor. So one way we connect with our home congregations is to host mission teams. And it takes quite a bit of planning because it costs about $3,000 per person. So it takes a while for a youth group or a mission team to kind of organize themselves to do that. But Africa offers some pretty fascinating culture, incredible wildlife. The Christianity is very, very active. So we like to get people involved. We like to get people connected. I'll take a few questions. I'll make a couple comments. As a doctor, I'm working with very, very healthy lungs, hearts, and blood vessels. And in medicine, if you've got a good blood supply, it doesn't matter too much what you do, the patient's going to get better. So it's actually easier for me to do medicine in East Africa with these healthy organs than it would be in Minneapolis. And exercise is everything in health. So these Maasai friends in their dancing remind you to get out and walk and look at the fall colors today. There's something about walking. It's in our physiology. It's in our neurology. We all need to walk. And I need it as much as any of you do. Another thing that we learn about from our African friends is the importance of community. That celebration is bringing every member of the community, every person into the community. As soon as little children can stand up and take a step or two, they go to the elders and get a blessing on their head. That's the first thing they learn in life, even before words or talking, is to stand up and go and offer their head to the elder. And if you don't put your hand on their head in blessing, they'll keep butting your leg with their head like a goat until you give your blessing. The extended family is very important. Normally, we don't need orphanages in Africa. The extended family looks after orphans. So it's very, very unusual for us to find orphanages in Africa. And we don't have old people's homes. The elders are in the family helping raise the grandkids. It's a wonderful thing. There's a transmission of age-old customs and values that can only come from the grandparents. So Africans would think we are barbaric putting our elders in nursing homes. Elders are supposed to be right in the community, raising the grandkids. So in the West, we've gotten to a lifestyle that's too individual. We don't rely on the extended family. And the Africans, the only way they can face a lot of the stresses and the challenges out there is to face it as a community. In our service this morning, I kind of talked about the spiritual dimension. Africans combine the spiritual dimension with everything else, the emotional, the intellectual, the physical. They bring in the spiritual on every level. And somehow, with our science and our technology and our education, we've tried to compartmentalize philosophy and education and spirituality. We don't mesh them the way Africans do. Africans are very good at it. Another area, Africans rely on the environment very directly the same way that farmers do here. Although they're nomadic and it's livestock, they rely on the rainfall every year. They rely on the environment. So they kind of have an understanding of how tied we are to the environment. And I think there, again, in the West, sometimes we've distanced ourselves, or we think we can live apart from the environment. And we're learning in very significant ways that what we do and how we treat the environment is going to impact us in this lifetime, and it's going to impact future generations. Are there any questions or any comments we can respond to?
That well, or with that water they were getting, did somebody dig that?
Okay, good question. The water source in the video. We live on the slopes of a 9,000-foot mountain, and it's got lush forest on the top. and about halfway up the mountain there's a spring. So there's a 3-inch pipe
Pipe coming
that brings
down.
water down from the spring. And the water is so clean, we can drink it the way it is. We don't have to filter it, we don't have to boil it. So the reason our village is located where it is because of that spring
The
and that
water.
water source. The other side of the mountain has springs that go other directions.
So,
So the water source is a spring.
What's the average age? What is the longevity there?
Okay, good question. He's asking about the longevity. If people can get beyond the age of 5 in Tanzania, they will live a normal lifespan. So our lifespan was about 50 years of age, but that's because infants were dying. So if you have one infant who dies in the first few months of life and a 100-year-old elder over here, the lifespan is 50. So it's the infant mortality that brings our lifespan down significantly. So right now, 1 in 10 children in Tanzania still die from infectious diseases like malaria or pneumonia or gastroenteritis. And out in the Maasai areas, it's twice that. So probably 20% of kids don't survive to the age of 5. Now it was much, much higher than that because, you know, for a couple of generations now we've been immunizing. Women have been able to bring their kids in for oral rehydration solution. We've been able to treat tropical diseases well. So the lifespan was in the mid-50s. Then the AIDS epidemic came along and took about 10 years off of our lifespan. So it's in the 40s, low 40s right now. But actually, if kids can get beyond the early years, they will live a normal lifespan. And a lot of elders will reach 100 or even more. And they are spry and healthy 100s. But the reality is that 1 in 10 children still, in spite of the progress that's been made with immunizations, the lifespan is still about 50. Now out in this area, we're not seeing HIV yet. In our little clinics, we test 300 women a year. In prenatal clinic, none of them are positive. If there is a positive, it's usually a Swahili shopkeeper or someone who runs a restaurant from outside our area because our populations are so isolated in the bush. But in the towns and the cities, 6% of our population is HIV positive. And one of our clinics is in a small town, and we follow 1,000 people with HIV. Half of them are getting antiretroviral therapy through Bush, Clinton, and Obama money. So half of those, about 500 people at one of our clinics are getting excellent treatment for HIV, and they go back to work. You wouldn't know that they were ill. But if they stop that medication, the virus explodes very quickly, and they have to take the medication lifelong. There's about 10 or 15% of those patients who don't, for some reason, they don't respond to the drugs. But the majority respond very, very well. It was real exciting when we started treating HIV. The most common cancer in East Africa is liver cancer, and it was related to hepatitis B. And now all of our kids, 80% and more of our kids are immunized against hepatitis B. So in 1 decade or 2 decades, we're going to eliminate the most common cancer in Tanzania. But the next most common cancer is cervical cancer in women. And when women don't get annual exams in Tanzania, so when they come into us, their cervical cancer is very advanced and it's untreatable. So I'm hoping in a decade, all of our young people, all of our real young girls and young men will be getting the human papilloma virus, because that would eliminate the second most common cancer. So I'm excited that will come.
What's your feeling about the possibility of the Ebola virus hitting Tanzania?
Okay, that's a very good question. Now, what got us into trouble in the U.S. is that we've been preventing HIV transmission. So we felt like our nurses and our doctors and our medical centers were good at preventing bloodborne diseases. But Ebola is another cat, and the cat is out of the bag. And unfortunately, it's in cities in West Africa now. I think there'll be a major push, international push, to contain the epidemic, and they know how to stop it. We have had outbreaks of Ebola in Uganda and Congo, right next to Tanzania, in years past. I've talked with African physicians who treated Ebola patients. And those were out in isolated areas, so the epidemic was contained quickly, even though several dozen people may have died, or a few doctors and nurses died before it was recognized. All it takes is someone to get on a plane from West Africa and show up in Nairobi, and then it could spread in East Africa. On the other hand, in East Africa, we still get epidemics of cholera. Cholera is a very serious diarrheal disease. And the government's very, very good with cholera. They jump on it immediately. And they put cholera patients out in the country somewhere in tents. They don't let them near cities. They don't let them near hospitals. And I think that's what they would do with Ebola. So in Dallas, the mistake we made was to take an Ebola patient into a hospital. They should have been off in some military tent somewhere, completely isolated. So I think if Ebola did hit East Africa, I think they would isolate the people the same way they do cholera, and I think they would get on top of it very quickly.
So it'd still be safe to travel there in Tanzania?
So at this point, we haven't had any Ebola patients in East Africa. Good question.
Are you trained in handling the virus in case it does hit East Africa?
People in Tanzania and Uganda and Kenya, we're familiar with Ebola outbreaks that happened in Uganda and in Congo. So usually what happens is that people die, there's a funeral, other people get infected.
Right.
Then usually one or two, a doctor and some nurses and other health workers die until they realize it's Ebola. Once they know it's Ebola, they get on top of it in a hurry. We got tricked because we're so good in preventing HIV infection.
Right.
That's where, I think that's where we got in trouble in Dallas. We thought we could control it the same way.
I have a question. Watching the women do laundry at this fountain or spring, they use soap. I'm looking at it, I don't see any soap.
They use bar soap.
Oh, okay.
And so they were splashing water.
I saw that and I thought
They
it was
splashing water onto their clothing, and then they were going like this with their hands. They were rubbing some bar soap into their clothing.
Okay,
So those are our laundromats.
all right.
What about rain?
We have a rainy season and we have a dry season in East Africa. And the dry season is 5 months long. There's no rain. It gets very dusty. And the dust turns to powder, like talcum powder. It blows everywhere. And the grass gets consumed by the livestock and the animals. And so every year we go through a 5-month dry season, and the kids stop crowing because there's no milk in the diet. The milk dries up in both the cows and the goats. And it gets really harsh. The environment gets really harsh. It gets dusty, dry. And you say to yourself, it can't get more harsh than this. It can't get drier than this, but it does. And so for 5 months, people's nutrition is very borderline. There's a few months in there where they're just eating basically cream of wheat or grits with no milk, with no sugar, with no oil. It's just grain. Then when the rainy season comes, the grass just explodes and it gets a meter high, 2-3 feet high everywhere. And then the goats and the cows put on weight. The children start growing again. They grow 6 months of the year. They don't grow 6 months of the year. And the women who kind of shriveled up to well under 100 pounds, they actually get up over 100 pounds. They'll put on, 10, 15 pounds during the rainy season, and you can visibly see that they're healthier. So the dry season is a huge issue for us. It has to be endured. Every 5 or 6 years, the dry season is actually a drought where cattle and goats can actually die. And so every 5 or 6 years, we have a really serious dry season, either because there's not enough grass or diseases. The livestock get disease when they're weak.